Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the tools, advice, and strategy you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now, on to this week's show.
Everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast. As always, I'm Josiah, and joining me is Travis Ross. Travis, how's it going, man? How's things been going since the last time we sat down and recorded an episode?
Doing well, man. Just had some a Mamaki Tech out here. Mamaki is the brand of the UV printers that we have here on site.
How'd that go?
It was actually it was really, really informative. And do you remember probably last episode or last couple of episodes, I was talking about how excited I was about the lasers and, all those cool things that we can do with the lasers. Yeah. Well, I still am, but after having that Mamaki Tech out here and kind of talking about all the different things that we could do, it's just another, kind of toy that we can do so many freaking things with. It's really cool. And one of the cool things is that you can use them, you can kind of use them back and forth. You can use them together. So you can make jigs with your laser to use in the UV, or you could print something in UV and then take it over the laser and cut it out, into a shape or something. I mean, there's just so many different things that you can do. And so it's really got my mind kind of going.
Oh yeah. I know that you had said since you got those printers, they haven't been completely functional yet as far as the UV printers in particular. So I'm sure you're looking forward to getting them up and running, because I think honestly UV printing is such a diverse print process. There's so much that you can do with it that I'm just chomping at the bit to get a UV printer, because I think there's lots of stuff you can just kind of blow up your product selections that you offer to your clients or that you offer to your customers, because it's going to be fantastic. But that's exciting, man. So everything going good? Are they going to be up and running here shortly and get to do all the new toy stuff?
Yeah, they're actually running right now, both of the machines. So we had one that was running, one hadn't been running since we got it, and now both of them are A-okay, and we're just kind of now going back to the drawing board as far as what we want to print on them. I mean, we have some products that we already did before, and but now we're I'm just starting to think about all the other things that we can do. And I've got a potential client that he prints all on a bunch of black things, and I'm like, well, the UV printer would be super cool to do. You could do black water bottles, black tumblers, black, flasks, black, and all these different black things, and then have full color prints on them. I'm pretty excited about the possibilities. It's really awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for you. I'm excited to go there and see what all they can do. And I think UV is going to be fantastic, man. So, well, we have an awesome episode here for all of you listening. Another interview, this time with another a person that Travis has known for a while. I've had the pleasure of meeting Neil before, but he is, we referenced it in the interview, right? He just doesn't stop. He's always innovating.
He's the Energizer Bunny.
He is. He's the Energizer Bunny of POD. So if someone out there listening can post a picture with Neil's face on the Energizer Bunny with merch and form instead of Energizer, you'll win a prize. We don't know what it is yet, but you'll get it, because he really is just nonstop, man. So what are you looking forward to the most in this interview for those listening, Travis? What do you think they're going to enjoy the most about this conversation?
I just think Neil, he's just such a down-to-earth guy. He's a fellow. He lives in Colorado. He just lives up the road.
Yeah.
And he's just a good dude. And I think it's, there's no pretense with him. He's just kind of is who he is.
Yeah.
But yet he's done so much, and I think, I think automation is really kind of the key to his success in a lot of ways. He's figured out ways to automate things so he can
Yeah.
do more with his time because, like you said, he's the Energizer Bunny. And so, but he's the Energizer Bunny of automation. So he figures out a way to get automation working for him so he can then go on to the next thing and get automation working for that. And, rinse and repeat over and over again. And then, 5 years later, he's got, multiple software programs and he's listed, tens of thousands of products across tons and tons of marketplaces. So
sure.
I think the thing that I'm most excited for our listeners to hear is just that just a regular guy can really be successful in POD, really,
Yeah, 100%. I think I met Neil at the second RMRC, which again was a conference that Travis, for those listening, that Travis put on with a friend of his for the Amazon space. And then the last year kind of had a different track for print on demand because it was becoming pretty prominent in the space. And you had told me about Merch Informer before RMRC. So we were using it because we had a Merch by Amazon account. So we go to the show and I meet Neil, having a good conversation with him. I think we were out at one of kind of like the networking things after one of the main sessions of the day. And had a good conversation with him, really liked him. And I mentioned to someone like, yeah, I was talking to Neil. I mean, he's a really great guy. And he's like, oh, that's the guy that invented Merch Informer. And I was like, what? I didn't have any idea. I didn't connect those dots, but it just goes to show that, as Travis said, there's no pretense with him. He's not really kind of bolstering in, hey, I did this and I invented Merch Informer. He's just a really down to earth, genuine guy who has figured out a way to find success in this industry in more ways than just printing designs on shirts and printing books. So I think it'll be, good for those out there that maybe you're doing POD, but you also have experience on some other software side. Maybe this will get you thinking of stuff you can do to help solve some of your problems, but that you could also open up to the industry as a whole as a solution, like Neil did with Merch Informer. So hopefully this will also start people thinking outside of the box of how you can be successful in this industry. So without further ado, let's throw it right now to the main event of this episode with Neil Lassen. Well, Travis, for this week's main event, we're going to welcome a guest, another RMRC alumni. I met Neil for the first time at RMRC. When he was there. Neil Lassen is a digital product print-on-demand entrepreneur. He utilizes third-party marketplaces to get products into customers' hands and now focuses on creating software that he wishes he had when he got started, which is awesome because we created this podcast because we wish we had it when we got started. So very similar beginnings and very similar necessity to create. I guess, necessity is the mother of all invention. So here we all are. Neil, thanks so much for coming on the show, man. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I forgot we met at that. Was it the first one? The RMRC conference?
I don't know. We did 3 of them.
Yeah. I think it's the second or the third one that I met you at. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was the first time I ever went to a conference ever.
Really?
Chris Green invited me, and I was like, well, it's right down the road. I live a little bit north, so I showed up, and that's where I met Travis and I guess you. So second one.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Yeah, man. That's super cool, man. So yeah, if you guys haven't figured it out by now, Neil is also a fellow Coloradoan. And so we're all here within probably an hour's drive of each other, but we're all in our separate places, because of technology. So Neil, man, we're really glad you jumped on. I actually asked Neil to be on, I don't know, several weeks ago, and he blew me off. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't actually blow me off. No, but it didn't work out with our schedules. But we're glad to have you on, dude. So to just kind of jump into this thing, let's start by talking about your print on demand story. You can kind of go back further if you want, just your e-commerce journey, really. But what brought you to the print on demand space?
Yeah, so that probably goes back to when I was in college. I've told variations of the story over and over again. But essentially, I was going to college. At first, I thought I wanted to be a banker. And then I was set on becoming a lawyer. So that's what I was going to do, is going to become a lawyer. As you can tell, I do not look like a professional lawyer. So essentially what happens is I'm working at Target. Okay, so I have some bills to pay. I'm living in this horrible apartment that leaks when it rains, but it was dirt cheap and they paid my electric. So anyways, I'm making $8 an hour pushing shopping carts at Target. And one day comes along, I think it was like the 4th of July. Okay, so Target was maybe 5 miles away from where I lived, and I usually took the bus. So I closed, and it was about 11 p.m., and I walk out, and I'm waiting for the bus, and I'm waiting like an hour for the bus. It's now midnight. The bus doesn't show up. And then I realize, it's the 4th of July. There's no bus. And apparently I forgot that Uber existed, right? So I just start walking home. So I walk the 5 miles home, and I'm just so upset at this point. I'm like, this needs to end. So I go on the computer, it's like 2 in the morning, and I just start Googling like how to make money online, right? Like I feel like everyone has some sort of story that goes like that.
Yeah.
So I start looking around, and I land on Flippa.
That's why those keywords are so expensive,
Yeah, exactly.
How to make money online is like that's such a high ad price on like AdSense.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I looked, but it used to be like a couple $100 a click, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But I mean, I get home and I'm looking through this stuff, and I land on Flippa, which I'm familiar with from back in college, but I'd never done anything with it. Started looking through websites, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like these websites are selling for like 20 grand. 30 grand. I've never seen that type of money before. I could do that. Like why not? Right? So, I start doing websites, and I finally get one to take off. Right? So I taught myself how to set all that up, write the content, yada, yada, yada. Quit my job.
Where are you living at? Where are you living at this point? Are you in Colorado yet?
No. So I don't know if you can see my shirt says Wisconsin. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. So that's where I went to school. So yeah, I start doing content websites. I'm going to school full time. 6 months later, after that night, quit my job, and then things start going terribly wrong. The Google algorithm updates. I lose all of my websites. I'm not making any money. So that led down a very long rabbit hole of like, well, what else can I do? Like I can make these websites. I can run these ads. Somehow, I basically tried everything I could imagine. Some worked, some didn't. Finally, I landed on private label. Now, this is before anyone, I didn't know anyone in this space. I didn't know you guys. I didn't know anyone sold in private label. I didn't know that Facebook groups existed. So here I am ordering products from China, getting them stuck in customs for months at a time, having literally no idea what's happening. And it's miserable. But, once the products do get into the warehouse, I'm making money, and that money is going right back into the business. So I'm really not profiting, pocketing anything. And one day, one of the guys I had met online, through this whole little journey, sends me this TechCrunch article that says, hey, Amazon's launching this new thing called Merch by Amazon, and you don't have to have any physical products. And I was like, the best thing I had ever heard. Ever. So the clouds parted, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I knew that there's this huge buying base on it. I didn't have to drive the traffic. I didn't have to run the ads. The audience already baked in. I just have to give them what they want, and that was kind of difficult because I am not an artist. But I can learn little things in Photoshop. So I threw up some really simple stuff, mostly text stuff, maybe some clip art, blah, blah, blah. Started selling. And I'm like, why would anyone buy what I'm creating? But they did. So from there, I just started scaling it, which led to other opportunities, selling on different marketplaces, again, with a built-in audience, looking at KDP. So I had been in KDP for a long time with real long content books, not very many of them because that's a lot of effort. They do fairly well, but then I was like, all these people are selling these, calendars. That's pretty cool. Let me check that out. So it just kind of morphed into print-on-demand e-commerce where I didn't actually have to touch the product, and I thought that was the best thing ever, and I still do.
You're selling on Merch by Amazon still to this day, and KDP? What channels are you currently selling your designs on at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm trying to create kind of like an overall brand, if you will. Sure. Merch by Amazon Seller Central, which thanks to Travis got me into that through print on demand, right? And then you have Etsy, and you have KDP, and you have Spreadshirt, and Teespring, and TeePub. Like all of those websites, everyone gets so focused just stuttered there for a minute. They get so focused on selling on Amazon that they don't realize that people are other places, right? You're leaving so much money on the table. I mean,
Yeah.
me and Travis have met before, like in person at a shop, and I remember you telling me about selling on Walmart, right? Like most people don't want to go through those steps because it seems more difficult.
Yeah.
But bringing all those steps together to create like a coherent brand that has like lasting power, right? Like you're not putting up one shirt, it's selling well for 2 weeks, and then no one ever sees it again. You're creating something that 5 years from now people are still going to be buying because they care, but like the customers care about it enough to leave reviews, to get that staying power, to all across the internet. So creating that brand is kind of what I'm attempting, selling everywhere I can with that built-in audience in the back of my head.
Sure.
Cool. So you're selling all over the internet. I mean, any place where you don't have to hold inventory,
Yes,
you can list. Be it a royalty based, like a Merch by Amazon, but also on the other side, the actual seller of record, Etsy, Seller Central, like you said, any other place, and you just obviously have those outsourced. But you don't really care. It's just as many platforms as you can get your listings on. You're doing that, right?
Yeah, and there's a big difference when it comes to like building a brand on Amazon versus some of these other platforms, right? Like you mentioned Etsy, you're kind of like the seller record. You have responsibility there, but it's so much easier to build a coherent brand there because you have access to the customers. Like you can talk to them, you can right a wrong, which will lead to a good review, which leads to you selling more products, which leads to more review.
Yeah.
Like it just it goes so much quicker. And there's less competition on these smaller platforms, and the buyers are just willing to spend more money. I don't know what it is, but yeah.
Now
it just really depends.
you mentioned, the difference between Merch by Amazon and Etsy, but Etsy and like Amazon Seller Central are basically the same thing. You're still the seller of record. You still can talk to the customer
That's true.
potentially, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, my personal experience is that those buyers are nothing alike, or at least they're the experience that I as a seller have with the buyer on those two channels is totally different. Their buying behavior is been programmed totally different. Is that your experience too?
Yes, it's night and day. The people on Etsy are super nice. Like, the pandemic's been going on. Shipping's been an issue.
Right.
If you're willing to work with the customers on Etsy, they're super understanding for the most part, right? There's always going to be that one guy screaming his head off at you. But on Amazon, it's this didn't show up on time. I want an immediate refund. If you don't refund me, like terrible reviews, right? Like there's no in between. Is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to do what you got to do to kind of mitigate
on
those.
Yeah, we've talked about the previous episodes on the show how Amazon's kind of created this almost entitled culture with their customers of like, hey, it's not here in 2 days. I'm gonna ruin every review you could ever possibly have. Whereas
it's understandable though in a way because you get so used to it. Like if I order something from Amazon, I just expect it to be here quickly.
Right.
And if I'm not, like I understand it's not the seller's fault because I'm a seller too. Yeah. But like you're a little bit angry that someone somewhere in the line dropped the ball.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
So Neil, you like not only are you building, trying to build brands on all of these different channels, you're not the typical entrepreneur because you just can't stop. It seems like you created a software, and you have a couple of softwares, but one in particular kind of. A lot of our listeners probably know who you are because of this software, Merch Informer. I know that. Can you tell us like how did that like fit in to the that whole story of your e-commerce journey, and like when did you realize, hey, I could also build software to help me with building a brand and maybe other people will like it? How did that all kind of come together?
Yeah, so back in what was it, 2016, I think. It's been a while, right? So back in 2016, I'm still doing websites. I'm struggling with private label, hating it. Still building websites. Introduced to this merch thing, and that became like an obsession. That's all I did. I didn't pay much attention to the private label business. I barely looked at the like website affiliate marketing business. I spent, no joke, like 10 to 12 hours a day on the Amazon search bar. That's all I did. I typed things into the search bar and I made spreadsheets all day. It was so boring, but I was seeing the results from that research and coming up with these new ideas and putting them together and getting them listed. That's just what I did because I had bills to pay and I wanted to move into a better apartment.
Yeah.
So that's just what I did all day. And then I realized like, okay, there's more to this business than sitting on the Amazon search bar. That's boring. No one likes to do it. I shouldn't have to do it. What can we do to make this better? Right. So like the guy that had sent me that TechCrunch article, Todor, I was like, hey, I have this idea. Why don't we just create this and we can do this research because he's a seller too. And we can just cut that down to like an hour a day and then we can focus on some other businesses. It'll be great. We'll be making more money.
So it was just for you guys at first.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I realized like, wait a minute, I see all of the same complaints I'm having start, mitigating into these groups. I see people complaining to me like, hey, I'm creating this really awesome thing and no one's buying it. Why is that? And I'm like, well, then I look, it's like, well, there's no audience for that. There's literally no buyers. Why are you creating something for an audience of 0? And then we were like, okay, let's just release this thing and just see. Right. So we released it. There was like 3 modules, right? It was like a search feature, a favorite feature, and maybe like something to look up brands. Like really, really simple, very ugly, very ugly. And then from there, like people started using it. People started giving suggestions. And I'm like, well, there's a lot more that we can like. All of a sudden, I had problems with designing. We added a designer. Oh, I'm having problems with keywords. Added that. Then the big one. Everyone's having problems with trademarks. There's trademark trolls over here. There's everyone's getting takedowns 10 months later. Why don't we just build a trademark checker? No one. Have you guys looked at the USPTO website? I mean, I know you have. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
So just building tools to save me time, but also kind of combining all the suggestions to help people sell more products without it being like their sole focus in life to sit on Amazon.
Right. Yeah. And I love that you guys you have a lot of tutorial videos on how to use it. And, I still have a subscription to Merchant Former. I don't use it as much as I probably could, but I've had it for, years and years and years. And you have you keep adding content. I mean, every time I log on, I'm like, what? Neil, slow down, bro, because there's always a new module, there's a new video, there's a new something, So first of all, kudos to you, man, for really building something that people needed and they asked for. It's been a very, very popular tool. I know people swear by it and use it all the time. So, so good job, man. It's a great tool.
I mean, to be honest, and this is very biased, but if I didn't have some of those tools, for example, we created a software to upload to all these other platforms because I don't have 365 hours a day to take one design and, to build this brand. If I can lay the groundwork and bring all those pieces together and not spend all day doing it, because there's always something else you could be doing.
Sure.
And no one wants to do the same monotonous things over and over and over again. That's the worst part of this business, but it's needed. Someone's got to do it. And I like a computer to do it rather than me. So,
Exactly. Automation. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the POD industry overall, Neil. Where do you see opportunities right now in the POD space? I know for both creators and for shop owners, producers, I know one thing you've talked about so far and mentioned about building brands. You've been trying to build brands by selling on all these different channels. So can you kind of dive into that more and how would one go about creating a brand in your opinion? And how is that an opportunity they need to maximize?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot that I could talk about here, and I know we don't have all day, but when it comes to building a brand, you're not going to throw a young girl's t-shirt in with a heavy hardcore biking drug related, that kind of content.
Yeah.
That doesn't mash
Yeah.
together. So when I'm talking about coherent brands, I'm talking about kind of designs that they're not the same, but they're in sort of the same vertical. They all kind of flow together. They have some sort of catchy name to them. Name doesn't have to be on the shirt, but kind of bringing that together where if someone gets that product, or, you see someone out there and they go, oh, what's your shirt about? And you say, hey, it's under this brand on Amazon. Like, it's something they remember. So bringing that together across the internet. So if you tell someone, at the store that likes your shirt, hey, just Google this brand, like it'll show up on Amazon, it'll show up on Etsy, it'll show up as a book, it'll show you like everywhere, right? But at the same time, you asked about opportunities, and I think a lot of people complain that it's getting harder, right? There's more competition, there's more people are joining POD, but POD is still very new. Like very, very, very new. Like it's been around for a while, but it's not saturated. But I think a huge opportunity that everyone is pretty much ignoring is outside of the US. Okay, so going back to my story when I was in college trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life, I started running Facebook ads. I spent a fortune losing money promoting, everything under the sun. Nothing worked. And finally, I realized that's because I'm targeting all of these, hard-hitting keywords. I'm targeting U.S. customers.
Right.
People in other countries, like poorer countries, and it sounds bad, but like countries that are not as rich as the U.S., right, still have people that buy things, and no one is targeting them. So I think a huge opportunity there is putting products up on different marketplaces and running those ads. So the other day I was talking to someone about this, and I'm like, you know what? I wonder on KDP if I started running ads specifically outside of the US, like some of the other Amazons you can for KDP, would my cost per click be lower? I don't know. So I went out and I tested it, and lo and behold, it is lower for the same keywords, aka translated right into those languages, than it is in the US. So that's something like I'm currently looking at, but no one's really catering to those audiences. They're putting something up in the US and they're like, well, hopefully someone in Spain is going to buy that. I'm going to put the same shirt up in Spain. Like those are two different cultures and no one thinks about that. So I think that's definitely a big opportunity, is catering to those other markets that everyone else is just like, oh yeah, I'll just push my same old stuff there. And they don't like it. They don't like it. So you have to cater to the audience you're selling to.
So if some of our listeners want to put some stuff up in, some EU countries or, or wherever, where would you recommend them getting fulfillment from, overseas and things like that?
Yeah. So right now I'm only testing this with KDP. I know there's some POD suppliers in like, Argentina, other places like that.
So you're not
but I haven't
using
really tested out yet.
Hard goods, actual hard goods aside from KDP, print on demand, kind of royalty based POD. Okay.
Right.
No, that's cool. I mean, and I know we've talked about, in fact, I think our last episode, or a couple episodes ago, we talked about Guten, Printify, and Printful, and all of them have fulfillment companies in the EU in different countries and such. And so depending on what you're wanting to sell, surely you can find one between those. And I'm sure there's others. I just wanted to know if there was one that you specifically recommended, but that's totally fine.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Something I want to test in the future, but I just haven't gotten there yet. But at some point I'm definitely going to try it. Yeah,
for sure. So what challenges, you talked about, stepping back, you talked about when you had started Merchant Former, you built that because you were having issues, you were having challenges. So what challenges are you seeing now, 5 years later, 6 years later from when you actually did Merchant Former, that you're seeing? And, because you talk to a lot of people in the space, what are store owners having challenges with right now? And are there ways that we can, talk about overcoming those challenges? And is there other software solutions or perhaps, using virtual assistants, or what kind of challenges are you seeing that people are kind of coming against right now?
Few things. Biggest challenge that most people are probably running into is if you're just starting or you haven't been around for a while, it's getting a little bit harder, right?
Sure.
When we first started, When Merch by Amazon first launched, I was like probably one of the first few people to sign up. It was aimed at app developers. Super, I could throw up anything. It could look,
Yeah.
and I did. They were ugly, they were bad, and people bought them. Now that same kind of content, it wouldn't sell. It wouldn't stand a chance in hell. No one would see it.
Right.
So things are getting a lot harder in that aspect, but that's really easy to overcome, right? Like most of us aren't designers. I know you are in some aspect, right? Like you're probably better than me. But leveraging other people's time that know what they're doing, okay, that changed my entire business. Figuring out that like I'm spending an hour, let's say, creating this design, and even I'm not very happy with it. I'm like, that'll do, but it's not great.
Yeah.
And realizing that someone that spent 20 years designing can crank out something 10 times better in 10 minutes, and I will pay them for their time. Like that was business changing, right? So
Yeah.
going back to your question, that's probably the biggest thing is one, making sure you're unique. Stop doing just stupid text-based designs that no one cares about. No one cares about them because that same text probably exists 10,000 times on Amazon. You're the 10,001st. So making sure you're coming up with unique stuff that isn't being sold, but that still kind of gathers a reaction from people. And then two, leveraging other people's time with more experience in the areas you might not be so great at.
Okay. So like listening to a podcast or something like that.
Something like that. I mean, that could work.
Yeah, like this one, maybe specifically.
Yeah. Like this particular podcast that I know, Neil, you have it on, you listen to it all the time, right? I mean,
like 40,000 listens by now,
by you.
Neil's an early adopter. Okay.
He is. Yeah.
We've learned this in this episode.
To be fair, I was one of the first people to be in that. It was a group or was a Facebook page? One of the two.
Group.
Facebook group. I was like the 10th person.
Okay? Well, we did a Facebook page first, and then we did a Facebook group. You were even an early adopter to the page.
Boom.
I mean, my goodness.
There you go.
Told you. It's proof of concept right there. So Neil, let's go back a little bit to you're working at Target, you're in Wisconsin. If you had to start all over, if we had to go all the way back, start all over, everything you have is gone, and you're back to square one.
You got a red shirt on right now.
Got a red shirt.
A red shirt. You're helping people find the home goods. What would you do first if you had to start all over? All things being equal, square one. What would you do first if you had to start all over?
So, just a little pre-context here. I'm usually like not very talkative. I was scared to death to come to that reseller conference that you put on. I'm like not a very outgoing person, right?
You have flipped a 180, man. You're like totally outgoing now. Yeah.
Well, I mean, throughout the journey,
it was my influence. Let's just say it was my influence on
anyone
you.
That
it changed everything.
They're just bolstered to just speak.
Yeah, exactly. No, but you start to realize that like you'd be nowhere unless you talk to people, right? Like,
sure.
The problems that other people have are probably your problems. You figure out those problems by doing, right? So if I had to start all over again and I didn't have any of my own problems, because I didn't vet Merch Informer at all. I was like, this is my problem. I need to solve it. I'm sick of doing this. I just start talking to people, because if you ask people questions, like open-ended questions, like, hey, you'd run this business. What is it that you do and what do you hate about it? Like, they're going to ramble on.
Yeah.
And there's going to be ideas there. There's going to be ideas there for software. There's going to be ideas there for anything print on demand. I mean, it's okay. I have this t-shirt that says, have you tried trying? Okay. I wear that to the gym. Everyone comments on it. Right. And someone put that on a t-shirt for me because I mentioned it in like a chat or a video, like just an offhanded comment that they just thought was hilarious. Put it up on Amazon. I'm like, well, I'll buy that. So I bought it. Everyone comments on it, not my shirt. And the thing still sells. It's probably still on Amazon. So I would just start talking to people and figuring out like what makes them tick. What's their problem? Is there a way that I can help them with said problem? Right? Because you have to become valuable to other people.
Okay. Let me up the ante and ask you, kind of a dangerous question for a print on demand podcast, but if you had to start all over, would you do it in print on demand, or would you perhaps go into a different industry?
Yeah, I'd start in print on demand for one reason. I can test and fail 1,000 times faster than like any other business model I know. I mean, if I'm going to do brick and mortar, like there's rent, there's overhead, there's employees, there's electric, there's utilities. I can launch product after product after product, and I'm really out only my time if I'm not running ads. If I'm running ads, I'm out a little bit of money.
Sure.
But it's minuscule to any other business I know because the audience is already baked in. Right. So I mean the whole game from there comes to figuring out how to reach that audience on said platform. Right. And that, I've talked about that a million times, written hundreds of thousands of words about it. But that's really the easiest way to test and fail until you see something that's working, and then you just have to repeat that over and over again.
Yeah. That's cool. All right. Well, Josiah, let's ask him the question of questions. Yeah.
This is something we ask all of our guests to kind of put on their or look into their crystal ball, as it were. And if you could just kind of, what do you think the future of POD is?
Lot bigger and a lot faster. So depending on what platform you're selling on, right? Like if it's Amazon, if it's Etsy, if you're doing Printify, Printful, Guten, something like that. I think there's going to be any product under the sun that you want. I mean, sunglasses aren't offered. Coffee mugs aren't on merch yet. Certain type of books, hardcovers aren't rolled out for everyone on KDP yet. All of those products are going to get a lot more diverse, which is good, but each product is going to require a little bit more kind of intuition on how to sell it, right? Not every product is a t-shirt design. I try. Quick side note, when I started getting into low content books, I was putting my t-shirt designs as covers, and many of my t-shirt designs say t-shirt on them, and I'm putting that on a book cover. Stupid, right? So like huge fail. But anyways, a lot faster, more products, more marketplaces. Like it's going to have a global reach at some point. And I know Amazon has mentioned in the past that they want order, printed, and shipped within 2 hours, not 2 days. So things are going to get a lot faster and a lot bigger. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there, but like you have to understand the nuances there of you can't sell a tapestry or a wall clock the same way you sell a book or a t-shirt. So, kind of figuring that out as you go along and, building the brand so that people actually care about what you're doing in the future.
Yeah, no, that's great. Okay. So tell us, you've got a new software out. You have Merch Informer, of course. And then I know you did BookBolt, which focuses on KDP. Yep. But you have a new one that just kind of came out, I don't know, in the last few months, right? Called Sales Samurai, right? Is it, first of all, am I right on the timeline, or has it been out for longer than that?
I think we're about 1 month in. I think we're about 1 month in. Yeah.
It's new.
Yeah.
So it's new. Okay, cool. So tell us about Sales Samurai. Tell us like why you created it. What's it do? How can it help people?
Yeah, so we created Sales Samurai sort of for the same reason, but a little bit different than the other softwares. Looking for opportunity to build that brand, right? Getting on Etsy has a lot of benefits. 1, you can talk to your customers. 2, you can sell for a way higher price. 3, there's not as much competition. Like there's a lot of pluses to selling on Etsy, but so many people that don't start on Etsy, if they start on, say, Merch by Amazon or Seller Central, like it's
Redbubble,
it's a different ball game. Like it's so much different the way that Etsy's algorithm kind of looks at everything, and there's tags, and sometimes they force you into ads, and sometimes they don't. Like it's just a different ecosystem. So trying to figure out how to optimize that entire process with, again, SEO, keywords. That's marketing, organic marketing, and you don't have to spend any money to do it, but trying to bring all those pieces together for Etsy sellers so they don't spend all day, because, I know other softwares exist in that space, right? Used to use them. And I'll tell you why we built it, right? Going back to February of 2020 is when the pandemic kind of started, right? Am I right on that timeline? It's been so long.
For those in the US, yeah.
Yeah, so right around that time, I knew a seller selling on Etsy, selling masks. Okay, they were selling hundreds of these things a day, just absolutely cleaning up. And I was using one of those other softwares, and I typed in, like face mask or face mask for nurses, something broad that I knew was bringing in sales. And it told me like this is getting 0 searches a month, or maybe it said like 25. And I that can't be right. I know this guy over here selling hundreds of them per day on those keywords, those tags. Like it just wasn't helping what I was trying to do to find those really niche keywords to build the brand. So I'm like, well, this exists. I know that we can create something that is probably better. And so we started on that journey, and here we are. One more thing I should mention is that seeing that we got our start in print on demand and Etsy now allows print on demand, we built some software into Sales Samurai again for automation of creating those print on demand products and getting them pushed to your store.
Oh, okay. So it's pushing them to the Etsy platform?
It's pushing them to one of those print providers. So it's funny you mentioned, Printful, Printify, and Guten.
Oh, okay.
And then those automatically send them over to Draft into Etsy, and you just go in there and you make some changes and push it live.
Gotcha.
Oh,
okay.
Very cool.
That's good. That's
awesome.
Cool.
Well, Neil, man, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to chat with us and to tell us about what you're up to and all the softwares that you have in process that you just launched. For super exciting stuff. And I know that a lot of people out there will probably want to avail themselves of what you have available. So why don't you tell people wherever they can find you on social media, the websites for the softwares that you offer, and just let them know where you are in the super information highway known as the internet.
Yeah, so I try to be everywhere, which is difficult. Yeah. So I'm in a lot of Facebook groups. You probably see me around. But 3 software, so merchinformer.com, that's probably where I post the most content. Depends though, right? Like some people are visual learners and require like videos, so that's on YouTube. But I'm more of a writer. I can get everything out in step-by-step form. So if you're looking for tutorials, stuff like that, merchinformer.com. KDP, bookbolt.io, and salessamurai.io for Etsy stuff. Etsy stuff, by the way, got to create some content there. But there's a ginormous article about Etsy SEO because, again, like I just mentioned, a little bit different than the Redbubbles and the Amazons of the world. So if you're interested in selling on Etsy, which everyone should be because the margins are very good, you should go read that.
Yeah, awesome. Absolutely. And of course, as always, we'll be adding all of these links in the show notes. So if you're listening, you should be able to just go to the episode description and scroll down and click those links that Neil mentioned and take you directly to those websites to avail yourself of all of that content. So Travis, anything else for Neil?
No, man. Really appreciate you coming on the show. You need to drive down the hill and hit up our shop sometime. We'll like cook a mug or print a shirt or
got a new location. I haven't seen it yet.
I know you got to come over. Oh, you got to check out my shirt. I got this really cool shirt. It's for it's like print humor.
Okay,
and,
so
do you know what this is? Do you see this?
I saw you post it, and I'm going to be honest. I have absolutely no idea what that means.
Oh man, we are revoking your POD card.
What? Okay, you're gonna have to explain it to me before we get off here.
Can we make those POD cards?
We should. Yes. We'll throw them on the UV printer and we'll make some POD cards. No, that is a clean print head, like a test print. Like when you first come in, you do a nozzle check.
Chef's kiss.
You do a nozzle check on your printers.
Okay.
And if it looks like this and all the lines are connected, that means your ink is really running well. And so you're good to go. So of course you're going to have a good day.
We'll see. So I don't touch physical products. There you go.
These hands don't
touch.
These hands.
Yeah. No, to be fair, Neil, I see those every day. And when he first posted that shirt, I was like, it's going to be a good day. And my mind went to
I just sat there and I was looking at it
it's
like
going to be a good day. It's like, what is it?
I'm
That's not an
missing
Ice Cube
something.
reference.
Yeah.
It took me till the next morning to be like, oh, I get it. So don't feel too bad. I'm these hands touch physical products all of the time, and I still didn't get that T-shirt reference.
I've sold tons of these. I've sold probably 5 or 6 of these to printers already.
That's
Yeah.
they
awesome.
just think it's hilarious. It's one of those kind of inside jokes you only know.
If you know,
you know,
right.
if you only know if you know, and if you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, you're just like, huh?
Huh?
And
Yeah,
so
so
I
that
had to
shirt,
put you on the spot.
that shirt and POD cards will be on a POD cast merch site. I'm
Yes.
sure sometime soon. If you
Love
want to
it.
tell
That's
yourself,
awesome.
so.
I have
Awesome.
one quick note. I do have a few shirts from like inside jokes that showed up on Facebook groups that you guys are probably in. And it's so weird because people will just sit there, like if you're in a store or you're out, they'll just sit there staring. And then sometimes they'll come up and ask you. Like I was at a gas station once and it said some inside joke and he comes up, he's like, I have that exact same shirt. I'm like, I guarantee you don't. Like you're like 78 and you probably haven't used a computer and this is specific to this tiny little Facebook group. He's like, no, I guarantee you I have that shirt at home. I'm like, all right, buddy.
Okay. All right. That's hilarious. Awesome. Well, Neil, man, thanks again for coming on the show, and look forward to doing it again and catching up when you launch your next 4 or 5 software suites that you inevitably will be doing, because you don't stop, innovating, which is awesome. So look forward to having you on again soon, man, and thanks again for coming on the show.
Cool. Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Well, there it is, folks. The interview with Neil Lassen. I want to thank Neil one more time for coming on the show. Again, as we said in the interview, all of the links will be in the show notes. So if you want to avail yourself of anything Neil is offering, you can go to those links at merchformer.com, bookbolt.io, and salessamurai.io to see what Neil has to offer. Travis, what did you think of the interview, man? I thought it went really well. And again, he's just a really easy guy to talk to. It went by so fast. That when we were done recording, we're like, wow, that was a really just easy conversation to have. And it feels like it flew by. How'd you think it went?
Yeah, I think we could have talked a lot more. We probably could have drilled down a lot more on branding, talking a lot more about some of that stuff. But yeah, he's a good dude. He's fun to talk to. Like I said before, before the interview, he just carries himself so nonchalantly. I mean, I don't know if you're watching this on YouTube, you can't really necessarily tell, but he's got like dreadlocks and, he's just wearing a t-shirt in his room, and he's just kind of hanging out. And, he does not look like the prototypical, like entrepreneurial businessman that has like 3 software suites and all these things that he's doing. He's just a guy, which I just love. I just love kind of that nonchalant, just kind of laid back demeanor that he has. And it is interesting. He mentioned how kind of nervous and kind of, quiet he was in the past. And I actually remember that. Like, I remember him being kind of, just not standoffish, but just kind of shy, almost wallflower-like. And he has definitely changed. He's not like that at all anymore. I think, he's had to kind of promote his software and him being the face of Merch Informer has really kind of put him into the spotlight in certain ways. And he's really kind of come out of his shell, and he's just a fun guy to hang out with and be around.
Yeah, no one's going to promote you like you'll promote you. You have to be your biggest promoter, your biggest spokesperson, because if you don't believe in it, why is anyone else going to? So yeah, I think that definitely was kind of a change that came out of necessity, but I can attest to Travis as well. He the first couple of times I met him was very wallflower-ish, but yeah, it was great to talk with him. And one thing we learned in this episode, like we said, he's an early adopter. He was an early adopter of Merch by Amazon, of private label, all that stuff. He was even an early adopter on the Facebook page and the Facebook group. So if you want to be successful like Neil, you need to be an early adopter. And I would still say it's pretty early to hop on that Facebook group that we keep talking about each and every week. We have new people joining all of the time. But if you're listening and you haven't, well, then you're missing out on the party, the community, the conversation. We want you to be a part of the PODcast family. So go to printondemandcast.com/Facebook and you can join the group, and we'd love to have you there. Of course, you can go to printondemandcast.com for more information. And if you want to reach out to us, honestly, the best way to do it now is the Facebook group. Wouldn't you say, Travis? We don't really get a whole lot of emails so much anymore as we do people posting, asking questions on the Facebook group or asking for advice and stuff like that. So please be sure to do that. How do you feel that the community is growing there on the Facebook group, Travis? I'm having a lot of fun kind of seeing people ask questions and ask for advice and engage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could be, we could have more conversations. I try to throw some stuff in there every once in a while when I think about it, but yeah, it's definitely grown. I mean, I'm looking forward to when we have, a few thousand people in there and people are, asking questions and people are being helpful and but I mean, let's face it, we're not the first Facebook group talking about print on demand. There's a lot of options when it comes to that. So that's fine. I mean, people can kind of go where they need to go. But I do like the fact that the people in our group so far have been helpful, have been contributing when it's appropriate. But I would also encourage you guys to utilize that Facebook group. I'm constantly Facebook is just kind of almost always open on a tab on my computer, and I see it because I do look through different groups and stuff to kind of see what's new in laser or UV or DTG or wherever. And I see those things and I'll try to answer questions. And I think you do too, Josiah, if we have answers or kind of try to point you in the right direction. So would encourage you, if you are in the group, go ahead and ask your questions. If you're not in the group, why not?
Yeah, what are you doing? Get in there. Right now, there's 140 members in the group, so it is growing. Like Travis said, there's lots of Facebook groups talking about print on demand, but there's only one Facebook group that talks about print on demand that is supplemented by an awesome podcast filled with bumpers, intros, outros, and dad jokes, and it's the Print on Demand Cast Facebook group. So if you want to be in the top 1% of Facebook groups that talk about POD and have a really awesome podcast, that's the place that you want to be, is printondemand.com/Facebook. Eventually, you're just going to join to shut me up and to stop saying that stupid link because you keep hearing printondemand.com/Facebook. I welcome you to shut me up if that's how you're going to do it. Please join the group. As always, guys, thanks so much for listening. We are found on all of the major podcast platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. Find us on iTunes. Please rate and subscribe. Last week, we highlighted some 5-star reviews, a 5-star review in particular that was left for us. So if you review us on iTunes, you leave us a review, screenshot it, post it in the group, and we'll shout you out on an episode of the PODcast because we really appreciate your guys' feedback and your engagement. So until next time, for Travis, I'm Josiah, and we'll see you next week right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
There it is.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next week.